All right, let's talk about a challenge that, let's be honest, every single business faces. How in the world do you get your story heard when there's so much noise out there? Today, we're going to dive into a blueprint from the experts over at PRISM MediaWire, and it's all about crafting a modern press release that actually works.
So, ask yourself this question. You've got this amazing, game-changing announcement, right? But with a news story breaking literally every second, how do you make sure your news doesn't just get buried? The old playbook just isn't going to cut it anymore.
Okay, here's our roadmap for this explainer. First, we'll look at the visibility problem itself. Then we'll get into the really interesting part, writing for both people and AI. After that, we'll break down the perfect press release piece by piece, touch on multimedia, and wrap up with how to get your story out there for maximum impact.
I mean, the amount of information flying at us every single day is it's insane. Your standard run-of-the-mill press release can easily get lost in the shuffle, making it incredibly tough for any company to really stand out from the crowd.
Okay, this right here, this is probably the single most important idea we're going to talk about today. You see, your press release isn't just for journalists anymore. It's also a critical piece of source material for search engines and AI. You absolutely have to write for both audiences. If you don't, you're pretty much invisible to one of them.
And this slide breaks it down perfectly. On one hand, you have humans. We love a good story, we connect with natural language, and we look for things that build trust. But then you have the machine readers. They don't care about a good story. They're looking for keywords, a very specific structure, and something called metadata, which is just data about your data. A great press release has to serve both masters.
Just a quick bit of housekeeping to make sure we're all on the same page. When we say SERP, we're talking about the search engine result page. You know, what you see on Google. Your press release's headline and subheadline are major players in how you show up on that page.
And the other big one is LLM, which stands for Large Language Model. Think ChatGPT. These are the AI systems that are totally changing how information gets found and summarized online. And guess what? They are actively learning from your press releases, making them a super important non-human audience you have to cater to.
All right, so now that we know who we're writing for, let's get into the how. We're going to dissect the perfect press release piece by piece, using that PRISM MediaWire blueprint as our guide.
First up, the headline and subheadline. This is your first impression, your digital handshake, really. For a person, it needs to be catchy and interesting. For a machine, it needs to be packed with the right keywords and fit into a really specific format.
And this table lays out the rules of the road. They are strict, but for a good reason. Your headline has to be under 60 characters, because that's what becomes the title on a search result page. The subheadline gives you a bit more room at 160 characters, and it acts as that little description underneath. And both absolutely must have your company name and keywords.
Okay, once you've nailed that headline, what's next? You hit them with the key highlights. Think of it as a super quick, scannable summary for busy people and hungry algorithms. Right after that, the first paragraph sets the scene with the classic city, state, date, and gets right to the point of the announcement.
And this is so important. These 3 or 4 bullet points, they're not just for show. They are a goldmine of data for those large language models we talked about. This is what they crawl to understand and learn from your news. This little section is doing some serious heavy lifting for your AI audience.
Now, with all the machine-friendly structure in place, we get to the fun part, telling the actual story. This is where you flesh everything out and really focus on the human reader, explaining your news in clear, compelling detail.
And PRISM MediaWire puts it perfectly here. Authenticity is everything. The body of your text has to sound like a human wrote it. You want to avoid that corporate jargon or robotic phrasing. Just tell your story.
A quote from a spokesperson is absolutely essential. This isn't just filler text you drop in. This is where you add a real human voice, you show conviction, and you start building trust with anyone reading your release.
Now pay close attention here, because these are hard and fast rules. The person's name and title have to be in bold, but most importantly, that statement needs to sound natural. PRISM MediaWire is super clear on this. Do not use AI to generate these statements. It kills authenticity, and it's a dead giveaway that you don't truly stand behind your own news.
And finally, you just need to wrap it all up with the basics. Your About section gives a quick snapshot of who your company is, and the contact info tells people exactly who to reach out to if they want to know more. Simple as that.
So, you've built this perfectly structured, beautifully written press release. But are we done? Not quite. To really make a splash today, you have to go beyond just words. Adding things like images and videos can take your story to a whole new level, and a lot of services, like PRISM MediaWire, often include this for no extra charge.
Now, if you're going to use video, there are a few little technical things you got to get right. Always use YouTube links. Believe it or not, some AIs actually block Vimeo. And make sure you include a title, a caption, and a full transcription. That transcript is another data-rich meal for the LLMs, which just helps boost your visibility.
And here's a really hot tip, something you might not think about. It can be tempting, but try to avoid using AI-generated images. Some websites and even some AIs are starting to block them, which means that cool image could actually get your entire press release ignored. Not worth the risk.
Okay, you've written it, you've added visuals, it's perfect. But a perfect press release that nobody ever sees, well, what's the point, right? So now we have to talk about distribution.
And this is where a service like PRISM MediaWire really flexes its muscles. It's a multi-layered attack. They start with major financial platforms, then they layer on targeted outreach to your specific industry. They add strategic keywords so you get found, and then they blast it out across their own social media network.
And if you're a visual person, this chart just lays it all out. A standard release gets you a certain amount of reach, but when you start adding in that targeted distribution and the social media push that PMW does, well, the visibility just explodes. You're not just publishing, you're delivering.
So it all comes back to that first question we asked. To make an impact today, you have to build your story for two very different but equally important audiences. The human being who wants a compelling story and the machine that needs clean, structured data. So the question is, yeah, your story is written, but is it truly ready to be seen?